I was told that it was an incurable disease. So horrible at times. Actually felt suicidal at times. But then I found out that there was hope. My name is June Brown. I am 57 years old. I was diagnosed with a disease called reactive airway syndrome. And that disease is a form of asthma, which it reacts to chemicals, it reacts to the weather. It was actually a lung disease. That whenever I'm around a certain smell, I would have episodes of asthma really, really bad. And I would always end up having to go to the hospital. And some of my stays were all the way up until 15 days.
Oh, wow.
So this is what the diagnosis was.
So how did you know something was wrong?
Well, actually, it actually started when I was at work. There was a fire at this plant that I worked for, and my lungs were exposed to this horrible chemical, and I had to be rushed to the hospital that night. And when they did tests, they said, well, you have acquired reactive airway syndrome, and the only way to treat it is you're going to have to be on, steroids for, the duration. So that's what
That's
actually
how you found out.
That's how I found out.
So when exactly were you diagnosed? Like how long ago was it?
I was diagnosed in January of 2001.
January 2001?
Mm-hmm.
And then what medication did they initially prescribe you?
There was a prednisone, there was singular, there was 2 different antibiotics, and because of these drugs, I had problems with my kidney.
Mm-hmm.
So they ended up having to give me another drug, which I could not take. It was just too much for me. So
Right.
the main drugs was actually the steroids.
Mm-hmm. So when you started taking the medication, how did it make you feel?
Absolutely horrible. I had no energy. I was depressed. One of the symptoms was depression. So I knew that I did not want to be on that drug.
Mm-hmm.
And one time there was a mix-up with my medication. Instead of, my pulmonologist had written out a prescription for singular. And when it got to the drugstore, it was Seroquel, which caused suicidal thoughts and stuff. But I didn't know because I was so sick.
Mm-hmm.
I just took it.
Yeah.
And after a couple days, I knew something was desperately wrong.
So how long were you taking the medication before you decided that you needed to try something else?
I actually took it for a period of 4 years because they told me that I had to be on it.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I was just seriously thereabouts of depression, and everybody knew that this wasn't me. So we knew that it was coming from the medication.
So you definitely feel that with you taking the medication, it made you worse than where you started from?
Yeah, before I was diagnosed, I was really, really in good health. And then after I got, even between the episodes, I was fine. But then when I started taking the medication, I just had no energy. I tell you, it was really horrible.
How did you transition out of taking your medication you were prescribed by a doctor to your natural remedies that you discovered? How did you get into that space?
Well, what I found is my immune system was really, really compromised.
Mm-hmm.
So I did research to find out, what is something natural, the natural herbs that I could take to build my immune system up, and what, antioxidants are really, really good. So I started first to drinking yucca tea, and then I went to the matcha tea.
Mm-hmm.
But the very best thing was moringa, which I found out a little bit later. After I started taking moringa, I noticed that, things started to get better. And it took maybe a good 2 months, but after it was in my system and I started to see how the symptoms were diminishing, I felt if I could just get off of a lot of this medication, I could feel normal again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you first started taking it, how did you know how much you should take? Were you just guessing? Were you trying to figure it out?
Actually, I was going for the gusto. I just did not want to be in the situation that I was in. So as far as it goes with the green tea, I was drinking it like morning, noon, and nighttime before I would go to bed. Then I switched over to kombucha. And I would drink that about the same. But in my research, I found out that moringa, because of the extracts in there, there's amino acids and so many great things that even work for, my blood pressure. A lot of other symptoms that came along with it. The moringa seemed to be the best, and I'm currently still on it.
So did you just quit cold turkey, like you just stopped taking the medication and just started taking your natural remedies?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I did too.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did.
How long have you been taking moringa as of now?
As of now, I want to say that I had a hard time finding it first, but it's been a couple years.
Okay. How long were you taking it before you noticed the difference?
A few months.
That's not bad.
A few months. It was in my system. I would still have those little, flare-ups, but it was not as frequent. I noticed that my immune system was really, really getting stronger, so I wanted to continue that. And I did go back to the hospital a couple times, and they tried to give me that prednisone. But because of what had happened as a result with the loss of a kidney because of the prednisone, I just plain and simply.
Now with moringa, there's many ways to take it. Like it could be in a powder form or a capsule. What have you found is the best way for you to ingest it, for you to get all the nutrients?
I do it in a powder form.
Okay.
And I make it in the form of a tea. And it's like I'm addicted to it now because I see how it makes me feel, the energy and everything. So I like the tea.
When you first decided that you were going to stop taking your medication and that you were going to go the natural way, did you ask your doctor first? Did you talk to them, or you just did it yourself?
I pretty much did it myself because, as they had given me that diagnosis that this is a lifelong disease, he would kind of like scold me. Are you taking your medication? And I would tell them, yeah, because I felt good at the time. I would just have to go in and get checked. But, his thing was wanting to write me all these different prescriptions. And I just have never been the type that wants to take a lot of medications.
Correct. That's how I was. Because, a lot of times doctors, they prescribe you that because that's how they make their money. But that's not necessarily the best option for you.
Right.
So when your doctor found out that you were taking moringa instead of your medications, what did he say? Did you go to the doctor and they noticed you were better, or how did that situation go?
Well, actually, I told him, I said, well, I'm starting to feel better. And he said, well, I don't have to give you, he said, are you taking, I was honest with him. I was totally honest. I said, well, the medication was really making me sick. And I had to go off of it for a little bit. I said, but I counteracted by taking, other supplements, natural supplements. So he basically was like, well, whatever's going to work for you, your body. That's
right.
Pretty much the way he put it. So we came to a happy medium with that one.
That's good. So are you happy that you made the decision to go the natural way instead of continuing to take the medication?
I'm very happy because, like I said, during the time that I was taking the medication, the depression. I'm usually a happy person. So I noticed that had to have come from the medication. Now I'm just full of life, you know. The hair and all of the stuff that was happening to me, I just feel healthier, so much healthier now as opposed to when I was a prisoner to the medication.
So let's say 10 years down the road, they create a cure. Would you take the cure or would you still go the natural way?
As long as I'm feeling like I feel, I would do the natural because I mean, I don't want to knock it.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't realize the effects that medication has on you. And that's sometimes, like for instance with me and with you, it makes you worse than you were initially. Because of all the symptoms and everything else. Because you don't really know when you read in the back of the bottle all those words, what that even is.
Exactly.
So, I don't agree with it. So, as you were doing your research, is there any other natural remedies that you still want to try that you haven't got around to trying yet?
Well, I was just basically happy with what was going on. And I did do multivitamins as well.
Right.
You know, so it pretty much kind of, you know, when people say that it's an incurable disease, I always try to fight and I beg to differ. And I knew back in the days of the Bible, they didn't have all this. They used natural medications and stuff. So, I mean, natural solutions. You know, the trees, the moringa comes from the Asian, it's an Asian tree, and then it's in Africa. So those people, they didn't have money for this and money for that. And some of them lived to be, you know, a ripe old age. And I thought, well, hey, I'm going to try it.
So today, are you happy about your future? Are you have a more positive outlook?
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. And it's something that so many other people that I've noticed that are going through symptoms like lupus, symptoms like arthritis, asthma, diabetes, all of it works, you know, it works, and I want them to know about it because I was just told on yesterday that by a friend of ours that she took her insulin shot and she felt horrible. Well, I took her bottle over the moringa bitters, and I got a call this morning that her energy level was so much better. So, you know, if we could get this out to other people, that some of the medications that you take is really, you know, responsible for some of the way that, you know, the way that you feel. So it's just one of the things that people do need to be educated, and so many people have prematurely left by taking the medication it may cure one thing, but it's bad on the other, which, you know, the prednisone, it kind of helped my lungs, but at the same time, it destroyed my kidney.
What would you want others to know who are struggling with reactive airway syndrome? What would you tell somebody who just got diagnosed? What would you tell them?
I would tell them to actually do your research. Just because they say that it is an incurable disease, that doesn't mean that you have to accept it. Explore other options. And, you know, it's pretty much, you know, getting your immune system in order. And there are natural homeopathic remedies for that. So it worked for me, and as bad as I was, I do feel like it will work for others. So do your research and see what, you know, you can come up with.
Is there anything else you want to add, or anything I missed, or any questions?
Well, the best way to really, if you're struggling with something and they tell you this, as I just stated, do your research. See how you feel, because there are so many people that have actually changed over and they literally come out on the top. Exercise, the right diet, along with the right supplements, when you can be off of your medication.
Right.